I took out the original version, the old version of this, the Energica Eva. No. I'm not, no. This is gonna be beware of the dog. Meaning that it's just gonna come over and try and play with you. Adorable little tyke. Once again, I find myself at the English Electric Motorcycle Company to test one of their bikes. They have very graciously lent me this Energica. I tried the older sibling of this, the Energica Eva SE9, I think it was called. This one, an updated version for 2020. The Energica Eva Ribelle. It's Italian, so I'm assuming there's some flourish on that. Essentially, over the version I tried a few months back, this one is lighter, a little bit more powerful, and they've changed the proportions somewhat. There's a few other differences, I'm sure, but that's largely it. I'll also mention that I'm going to keep it relatively broad strokes because the technology in electric bikes is changing rapidly. If you watch this video in 6 months' time, even, I'm sure certain details will have changed on it. You'll obviously notice the big battery down the bottom there. That's what we like to see, 100%. Says I've got a range of about 88 miles. That's because the previous user of this, lender of this, allegedly spanked it at high speed everywhere. So that range hopefully should go up, we'll see. If I'm being honest, I would be hoping for about 100 miles out of it. We have already gone down 2% though. Keep an eye on that clock. I scouted this out this morning and I know to avoid the left route because a big old puddle there. Look at that. No, I don't want to go swimming today. Thanks. I did not bring my trunks. Electric power. There is something addictive about that. You do just kind of want to keep rolling on. The more you own it, you start playing with how you maintain that range, how you manage to stretch it a little bit further. The first time you get on it, you just want to see how fast it accelerates, which is very, very fast. I've got traction control on pretty high at the moment. I'm not going to play with traction control too much. I want the mollycoddling because, again, greasy day, electric bike. It's a new thing for me. I might know how a petrol motorcycle responds and I might know roughly how you can lose control on them. This is new. Trying to guess exactly how and when that rear wheel is going to skid out if you take traction control off is an expensive gamble. Just going to avoid these puddles if I can. Ooh! There's a little slip. Okay. Yeah, I really don't think I'll be touching that traction control. Handling wise, it feels a little taller than some of them. The Zero, I think, a little lower to the ground. The Harley as well, also a little closer to the ground. I've been told reliably by Alec that this thing feels quicker, or even just is quicker, than the Zero in terms of roll-on acceleration. I can believe it. It's been a while since I tried the Zero, but wow, this thing just jumps at it. And it gets stronger and stronger the longer you hold on. Just gonna cross this river. Yucky, yucky, yucky. It's gonna be a little bit dirty now. So the first thing I noticed was the change in position while you're on the bike. Those bars aren't quite as far swept back, so you are lent a little bit further forward. I personally quite like that. In fact, let me show you what it's like to sit on. So the other one, while you were sat on it, was very upright. Those bars were back to practically here. This one, obviously, you need to lean a little bit further forward. You are in that kind of sporty, ready to go position. Let's just knock that up there. Put my feet on there so you can see the kind of angle your legs are at as well. Relatively sporty on these rear sets, but nothing uncomfortable. Nice amount of leg room as well. One of the things I don't think has changed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this one's got those Marzocchi forks up front, fully adjustable. It's got that Bitubo rear shock as well. They are quite bouncy. If you go over some uneven terrain, some wayward bumps and jumps, then you're going to find yourself getting bounced out of the seat. It's not painful. It just limits your connection to the road, literally, because you are lofted out of it. I think I can feel that bouncing though. Suspension is exactly as it comes from Energica. I would probably spend a little bit of time dialing that in for however you prefer your bikes to feel. Quite liking the handling. Obviously I'm going to go pretty easy today. It's autumn, there are leaves on the road, it's wet, it's greasy. She's a lively one. There's a fair amount of bounce out of it. It's a pretty bouncy road. It feels stable and it's not like it's crashing that seat into my arse when I land. But definitely on these roads you can feel it. On this road in particular, it's like you sat on a trampoline with a toddler. Just calm down, right? Stop bouncing. Handling wise, it requires such a little amount of input from you to get it to change direction. It is breezy, easy breezy. Talking of breezy, the power, delivery and the performance from this is addictive, dangerously so. Dangerously for your range and also for your little ticker, because you might scare yourself. But if we're talking statistics, just to give you an idea, this thing is playing with about 145 horsepower, torque of about 215 newton meters or 159 foot-pounds, a top speed of 125 miles per hour, allegedly. I saw somewhere listed that it might do 140, again, irrelevant. First of all, you're never going to do it. Second of all, it's illegal. And thirdly, it's an electric bike. You're not going to want to eat into your range like that. You're just not. Acceleration, key figure, 0 to 60, 2.6 seconds. I mean. I don't think I've ever been on anything quicker than that. It's relentless. It is just insane how that delivery comes to you when you've got an electric bike. And I certainly didn't find a limit from that, unless you're playing with different rider modes, in which case it does limit the top speed, which is quite a good thing. If you stick on eco mode, it will only give you 59 miles an hour, which means you can basically just crack that throttle wide open wherever you want to go. That's a lie, can't do that in town, can you? Wherever you want to go in the country on a national speed limit road. It is very noticeable what kind of difference that makes to performance. As you can see, and it's weird when you can feel it curb itself off as you get higher up. I mean, if I was sitting along somewhat bored, I might stick it in eco just to see what kind of range I was going to get. And it has gone up, it's 86 now, when it was down to about 77 before. I'm sure that'll go up even further. We're still on 93%. I can see the range actually going up as I'm talking to you, 88 now. So clearly it makes a difference, but I don't know that I'd be sticking it in that mode all that often. If I was going along, I would probably stick that. Let's go for, you got rain mode, urban. Guarantee this truck's going to want to go faster than me, so urban mode. Oh, that caught me by surprise. In order to change modes, obviously you need to let the throttle off, and then when you dial it back in, just be aware that you've changed it, because that happens, and if you're not ready for it, it'll wake you up. Luckily for you, when you're playing with that power, it's quite an intelligent bike. It will take care of you if you want it to, if you let it. When you're dialing up the traction control, the ABS, make sure you've got all of those things on there. And I would recommend that, just because, again, the power delivery is different from anything else you will have ridden. If you're used to petrol motorcycles, when you get on this, the delivery does change. Yes, it's a bike, yes, it's two wheels, but there are certain differences and certain things you need to just warm up and get used to. You've got 4 rider modes, you've got eco, you've got urban, you've got rain, and you've got sport. Then you've got the engine regeneration, which you've got off, low, medium, high. I probably wouldn't leave it there. I'd probably stick it in either medium or low. Off isn't really for me either. I quite like to have a little bit of feedback and resistance, same as you would do on any petrol powered motorcycle. A little bit of engine braking is what I'm used to and is somewhat comforting to me. On top of that, obviously, if you turn it off, it's going to affect your range. There's the test really. If I show you within safe parameters what happens when you leave it to the engine braking or regeneration. When you roll off, it will bring you to a complete stop all by itself. It's quite strong. It's also quite stable. Strong and stable. It's the Theresa May of electric bikes. And do you know what? I think I made that joke last time as well, and it was just as funny then. Even I didn't laugh at it. That's when you know it's crap. Range, it's going to vary. Obviously, it's going to vary. If you're going by what they list, then they're saying about 400 kilometers or 249 miles in a city, 230 kilometers or 143 miles combined, or 180 kilometers, roughly 112 miles extra urban. I assume they mean higher speeds, motorways and things. Speaking to the guys, we think it will give you somewhere between about 70 and 120 miles realistically. If you know anything about batteries or electric bikes, then you'll probably be aware that changes depending on the circumstances. So it's only ever a guideline. Okay, let me just make sure I'm in exactly the right settings that I want. So we've got urban, rain, sport. Might stick it and leave it in... Actually, do you know what? It's wet. I'm going to put it in rain. Let's see what rain mode is like. You've got other things on here. I mean, the switchgear is fairly comprehensive. You've got cruise control. That would be useful on a bike like this. You've also got heated grips. I would say that's less useful because the likelihood that you're going to use heated grips pretty slim, especially how much it's going to eat into your range. And if you're riding in the cold, if you've been watching anything of the long way up, you'll know that that affects the range that you get out of a battery as well. So we're in rain mode. That's very progressive on the throttle. I think the one that I'm liking most, maybe urban. Take that off, whack it back on. Yeah, we're in urban mode, I can tell immediately. I mean, you say urban. I don't know if you know of an urban place where you can do over 100 miles an hour, because I certainly don't. Just for the sake of it, let's whack it back in sport for the return leg. And watch that mileage go down. If you're looking to fill it, and by fill it I obviously mean charge, then depending on the output that you've got, this will do AC and DC charging. DC, 0 to full, you're looking at about 50 minutes. AC, something from your home mains, you're looking in the region of about 7 hours to full. So if you're parking it up overnight, obviously it'll be full the next day. Again, these things change very quickly, so take that with a pinch of salt. I'm sure that'll change in the future. Keep an eye on it yourselves. I'll try and update it in the comments if I can. Most of the time, if you are pulling up, obviously you're not going to be on 0 unless you've just timed that perfectly or had to push it for a certain amount of time, in which case I can definitely sympathise. But most of the time you're going to be pulling up with a little bit of juice still in there. So like I say, 0 to full, you're looking at somewhere around 50 minutes. Obviously it's going to be less than that because theoretically you will be sensible and you will time your stops appropriately. And planning and not leaving anything to chance. Sure. I should point out this is somewhere in the region of about £23,000, 24 and a half roughly without the government grant. Depending on how you want to kit it out, it's anywhere between about 20,000 and 25,000 if you want to get an Energica. 96%, 77 mile range. Apparently I haven't been that courteous with my throttle control. Apparently I've been cheeky with the amount I've been accelerating. Oh, this is a busy road, isn't it, for trucks? Again, prices will vary somewhat depending on what you put on it. If you want to buy an Energica, chatting to the guys again, you're going to be looking realistically somewhere between about 20,000 and 25,000, depending on which one you go for and what sort of stuff you put on it. It has got its own little charm, its own character. I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that unlike a lot of other electric bikes, this one is chain drive instead of belt drive. That in itself adds a little bit of character and a little bit of difference to its competitors. And then there's the fact that this one actually has a gearbox. So it's not just a motor, a belt, a rear wheel. This is motor, gearbox, chain, rear wheel. I wouldn't be able to tell you specifically how that benefits the bike, but I know that it changes the way that it feels. This doesn't just feel different to a petrol motorcycle, this one feels different to any other electric motorcycle. It has its own character, it has its own charm. Part of that charm is that it's essentially a really, really fast bouncy castle. I definitely would have a little play around with that rear shock. With electric bikes, you could argue that there is less character and that there's less chance to change that character depending on who the manufacturer is, other than, a bouncy seat, as I'm finding. God in heaven, that's bouncy. Or obviously what you do with the proportions and the handling of it. With this one, there is an interesting difference between it and almost all of the rest of the market, if not all of the rest of the market. This has a gearbox. That, I'm sure, is so that they can finesse it to get the most performance out of it. But because it has a gearbox and because it's chain drive, it does feel different from any other that I've tried. It does feel different than the Livewire, for example, or the Zero SRF. I think the takeaway for me is that this feels like an improvement, feels like an evolution of the brand and of electric bikes, and ultimately it is fun to ride. Range wise, I don't know what that was set on before for trip. I don't know how many miles I've just done, but we're still on 88%. That's not too bad considering I was not riding as consistently as I probably would if this were mine and I was trying to do a longer trip. Just get it over there and I will talk about it some. Ta-ta, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. At least it's not raining. Shouldn't do this near the toilet, should I? Yeah. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Hey, just while I've got you in, before I say goodbye, a small revision in that the English Electric Motorcycle Company are currently running competitions where you can win yourself an electric vehicle. I won't specify exactly which one because of course that changes over time and I don't know when you're watching this video. The easiest thing to do though is to follow them on their social medias, Facebook, Instagram, other ones that might be cooler that I'm still not aware of because I'm just not with my finger on the pulse. But I'll leave all relevant links in the description, so check them out if you want to, and you might well win yourself an electric bike in the future. Fingers crossed. Or you won't. You don't have to click on it. Completely up to you. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Ta-ra.